What if I told you that Steve Bartman changed the landscape of college football as we know it? Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. Today, taking a look at how one of the unluckiest plays in sports history not only led to the Alabama dynasty, but also led to one of the wildest seasons in college football history. We all know the story of Steve Bartman. Game 6 of the 2003 NLCS. It was all the way back on October 14th of 2003. We all know what happened. The Cubs were 5 outs away from advancing to the World Series. Ball was drifting foul. Bartman attempted to catch it, interfered. The Cubs epically collapsed. They blew a 3-0 lead in Game 6 to the Marlins, and then ultimately lost Game 7 to prevent themselves from going to the World Series. But because of that epic collapse, and maybe because of Steve Bartman, the Florida Marlins advanced to the World Series, where they, of course, had a couple of home games in a stadium that they shared with the Miami Dolphins. They shared Joe Robbie Stadium there for a little while. Because they still had to use that stadium, and because they were still playing baseball, the dirt field, the dirt diamond, had to remain for an extra week or so. On October 19th, 2003, just 5 days after the infamous Bartman incident, the Miami Dolphins hosted the New England Patriots. Olindo Mayer, the kicker for the Miami Dolphins, who finished his career with an 81% field goal percentage, missed 2 game-winning kicks in the fourth quarter against the Patriots. Both kicks were missed because Mayer slipped on the infield dirt of the Marlins infield. Played a major role there. The Patriots went on to win the game. The Dolphins ended the year with a 10-6 record, missed the playoffs by 1 game in 2003. Can't help but wonder if Mayer makes that kick, the Dolphins go to the playoffs. Who knows what happens? Because the coach of the Dolphins at the time was a man named Dave Wannstedt. Dave Wannstedt. We're going to get to that in a second, why that contributes to college football. From 1996 to about 2001, the Dolphins had not missed the playoff. Wannstedt comes in, of course, he missed the playoffs in 2002, misses it again in 2003. People in Miami were getting anxious. They needed some change. They needed to get back to their winning ways, even though a 10-6 record was not half bad. Entering the 2004 season, the Dolphins made a lot of major changes, not just from a player standpoint, but also to a staffing standpoint. Paired with a very poor draft, Wannstedt and the Dolphins started the 2004 season at 1-8, and Wannstedt ultimately left the team. 2 months later, he took the head coaching job at Pittsburgh as head coach of the Panthers. Now, of course, you may be asking, who was the next head coach of the Dolphins? Who took over for the Dolphins in 2005? It was none other than Nick Saban, who left the job at LSU to take the head coaching position in the NFL with Miami. And we'll get to that in a second. But Wannstedt takes the job at Pittsburgh, where he does a decent job overall. But in his third year, things weren't going very well. His Panthers were 4-7 in the 2007 season, his third year at the helm. In the final game of the year, they traveled to take on number 2 West Virginia in Morgantown. No way that Pittsburgh is going to win this game. Except they did. Wannstedt's squad, with nothing to play for but pride and trying to spoiler the Mountaineers' national championship hopes, went in and upset them 13-9, eliminating West Virginia from national title contention. Obviously, a little bit earlier than that, the number 1 team in the country at the time, LSU, had lost to Arkansas at home, 50-48, in triple overtime. Many thought that LSU's loss to Arkansas, their second loss of the year, was going to eliminate them from national title contention, just like Pittsburgh's win over West Virginia eliminated the Mountaineers from national title contention. But with a few extra help, not just from the regular season ending, but also the conference championship weekend, LSU found themselves back in national title contention, where they ultimately played Ohio State. LSU naturally went on to win the 2007 national championship in a year that many believe was the craziest and wildest season in college football history. Now let that sink in for a second. Now it's hard to believe. Dave Wannstedt leaves Miami, goes to Pittsburgh, upsets West Virginia. Had West Virginia defeated a 4-7 Pittsburgh team, the national championship in 2007 would have been Ohio State versus West Virginia. A Big Ten school versus a Big East school. If that had been the case, many believe that West Virginia head coach at the time, Rich Rodriguez, would not have left the job to go coach at Michigan. Many believed he would have stayed at West Virginia. Why would you have left? Maybe he would have been a national championship winning coach. Why leave West Virginia after winning a national championship, or let alone leave them after getting them to a national championship. But falling short in disappointing fashion, he left the job to go to Michigan. Of course, Michigan was mediocre under Rodriguez, ultimately let him go a few years later. But you look at what could have happened for LSU. If West Virginia does not lose to Pittsburgh and Dave Wannstedt, LSU is going to the Sugar Bowl. Not a bad year under Les Miles by any means, but many believe that Les Miles may have left the LSU job and gone to coach his alma mater, which was Michigan. So another routine Sugar Bowl appearance. Les Miles goes to Ann Arbor, takes a head coaching job at his alma mater after posting a 34-5 record in 3 years at LSU. What that does is that creates chaos in the SEC. Not only does the SEC start to begin their big-time national championship winning streak, where they won practically every title from about 2006 to 2012, ultimately ending in 2013 when Florida State defeated Auburn in the national championship, the last year of the BCS era. So not only does that prevent itself from happening, but LSU is devoid of a coach. But maybe they weren't going to be devoid of a coach if Dave Wannstedt gets his Miami Dolphins team to the playoffs in 2003. If Orlando Mayer does not miss 2 game-winning kicks against the New England Patriots because the Florida Marlins were in the World Series. Because remember, during that time, LSU head coach was Nick Saban. He does not leave to take that Miami Dolphins job if Wannstedt stays in Miami. More than likely, if Miami goes to the playoffs in 2003, Wannstedt does not have a poor draft. He does not regroup his entire organization. The Dolphins do not have such a bad start in 2004. If he survives just one more year in Miami, survives that 2004 season, Nick Saban maybe never leaves to go to Miami. And who knows? From a timeline standpoint, would Nick Saban have ever left LSU? He probably was never going to leave LSU for Alabama. There would have been no reason to do that. There would have been no reason to leave a place where he was winning and won a national title to LSU to go to another school within the same division, the same conference. All that being said, Wannstedt, because of what happened, opened the door for Nick Saban to go to Alabama, because Nick Saban took the Miami Dolphins job, succeeding Wannstedt, only lasted a few years in Miami. By the time his time was up in Miami, the door was open for him to go to Alabama. Les Miles, of course, remained at LSU because LSU did win the national championship thanks to Wannstedt's Panthers defeating West Virginia. But again, all this being said, if Steve Bartman does not attempt to catch that foul ball, does not play the major role, the Cubs maybe, more than likely, who knows, go on to the World Series, which means the field in Miami does not have that infield dirt there, which means Orlando Mayer does not miss 2 game-winning kicks, which means Miami Dolphins do, in fact, make the NFL playoffs in 2003, which means that Dave Wannstedt probably survives the 2004 season in Miami, which means that he does not go to Pittsburgh, which means that they do not beat, more than likely, West Virginia, which means your national championship in 2007 is Ohio State versus West Virginia, which means maybe LSU loses Les Miles and he goes to Michigan, but more than likely also means that, again, Nick Saban never ends up at Alabama to begin with. All because of one play that happened in 2003, one play that happened like 4 or 5 years before Nick Saban even arrived in Alabama, that happened 4 years before 2007, maybe one of the wildest years in college football history. So yes, Steve Bartman ultimately changed. It could be a stretch. It might be a bit of a stretch. But I believe that Steve Bartman ultimately changed the landscape of college football as we know it. The SEC began their dominance, really, with that national championship from LSU in 2007. LSU won it in 2007. It was Florida the next year. Then it was Alabama. Then it was Auburn. Then it was Bama 2 years in a row after that in 2011 and 2012. They won 7 or 8 national championships in a row. Maybe that dominance doesn't occur if Steve Bartman attempts to catch that foul ball. If he doesn't do that, maybe the SEC dominance isn't there. The coaching landscape in the SEC is different. The history and the future of Michigan football during that time could have been different had they landed Les Miles. Everything could have changed because of one fateful night on October 14th of 2003, because of 2 fateful kicks that Orlando Mayer, a sure-footed kicker, missed because of slipping on the infield dirt. It's the butterfly effect, guys. One thing leads to another, which leads to another, which leads to another. One simple thing in a completely different sport completely changed college football as we know it. You have Steve Bartman to thank for that. If you're an Alabama fan, send Steve Bartman your best wishes and thank you. So there you have it, guys. I know it may be a bit of a stretch But it's one of the biggest what-ifs in college football history that maybe we didn't even know about. We think about things that actually happen in college football. We don't think about other things that could contribute to this storyline. We don't think of other things in other sports and other events that could contribute to what happened in college football. But it is a crazy thing to think about, how the all trickled down. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Is this a big stretch? Does this make sense? Do you truly believe that Steve Bartman contributed to this, or would it have all happened anyways without him? That's up for you to decide. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. But as always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. And of course, as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.